I hadn't seen my mother in 6 years when I got her message. It wasn't a phone call. She didn't even text. Just a yellowed envelope taped to the door of my apartment, with my name written in her handwriting. Thin, almost shaky, but unmistakable. Inside was a single note. "You should come now. The door shouldn't be unlocked." That was it. No return address, no explanation. Just those 9 words. I stood there in my hallway staring at it for a long time. I probably would have thrown it out if it hadn't been for the line about the door. If you grew up with my mother, you'd understand. That door was everything. The back door of our family's cabin in the woods. The one with the rusted bolt and the chain she used to replace every year. She used to say the same thing every fall. "We lock it so nothing gets in. And so nothing gets out." I didn't believe her then. I still don't believe in anything supernatural. But I remember how certain she was. And I remember how she used to sleep in a chair facing that door. I told myself it was just guilt, maybe dementia. But I still got in the car the next morning and drove to the cabin. The place was smaller than I remembered. A 1-story wooden box surrounded by pine trees, its paint peeled down to bare wood. Her old SUV was in the gravel lot out front, tires half flat, windshield cracked. I knocked twice. No answer. I opened the front door. Inside, it was cold and quiet. The cabin had 2 rooms, a main room with a wood stove and a small kitchen, and a bedroom down a short hallway. The air smelled stale, like wet bark and bleach. There was no sign of her. Then I noticed the back door. It was open, just barely, not swinging, not obvious, but I could see the sliver of daylight around the edge and the broken chain dangling from the bolt. The hair stood up on my neck. I called out, "Mom?" No answer. The hallway to the bedroom was darker than it should have been. The light bulb overhead was burned out. I walked slow. The floor creaked under my feet. The bedroom was empty. The bed was unmade. Her purse sat on the dresser. Her boots were by the door. There was a coffee mug on the windowsill with an inch of black mold floating at the top. She hadn't left. I circled back to the living room, looking again at the back door. It led to the woods behind the cabin. Thick trees, brush, a fence that had fallen over years ago, and just beyond that, I saw the old concrete hatch. I hadn't thought about it in years. It was sunk into the ground behind the cabin, with 2 steel doors and a rusted padlock. My mom used to say it was just an old storage cellar, but we weren't allowed to go near it. When I asked why, she said, "Because some doors are heavy for a reason." When we were kids, my older brother tried to open it once. She caught him and slapped him hard enough to knock him down. I stepped outside. The backyard was quiet. No wind, no birds, just trees and the hatch. And this time, the hatch was open. The doors were wide. The lock was snapped and lying in the grass. Something had been dragged through the yard, a wide trail through the grass that led into the woods. Like someone had pulled a body wrapped in a blanket. I should have left right then. Instead, I went back inside. I called 911, told them I was at my mother's property and she might be missing. The dispatcher said they'd send someone, but it could take a while. So I waited. I didn't sit. I didn't touch anything. I stood in the living room, watching the hallway, then the back door. I told myself maybe she had fallen. Maybe she was confused and wandered off. But there was no blood. Just that open hatch. I started noticing other things. The chain on the back door hadn't been cut. It had been melted. The metal was warped and fused like someone had poured acid over it. And there were tracks near the hatch. Not boots. Something else. Too wide. Flat. 5 long, even points that didn't look like toes. Whatever made them had weight. My phone had no signal. I kept checking, but the last bar dropped just after noon. Around 2, the sky darkened. Thick clouds rolled over the sun. Wind picked up again, but it came in short, sharp bursts, like exhaling. Around 4, I heard movement on the roof, a few soft steps, then a dragging sound. I froze, then more steps, then silence. I opened the front door and stepped out onto the porch. Looked up. Nothing. The roof was empty. When I turned to go back inside, the back door was wide open again. I know I didn't touch it. Right on the threshold, lying on the wooden floor, was a piece of orange fabric. I stepped closer and recognized it immediately. It was the arm of my mother's sweater. The thick orange one she wore every winter, torn along the elbow. I remembered that tear. She never fixed it. I picked it up. It smelled like the cellar. Then I heard movement behind the shed. Not an animal, not a person. Something moving slowly and on purpose. I didn't wait. I slammed the back door shut and locked it, pushed the old kitchen table in front of it. A minute later, I heard 2 slow steps onto the porch. Then it stopped. It didn't knock. It didn't rattle the handle. It just stood there. I waited. A few minutes passed. Then I heard it move to the side of the house, toward the window by the sink. I turned off the lights and crouched behind the couch. The room was already dim. The sun was gone. Only gray light remained. I squinted through the dark. Something passed across the window. I couldn't tell what it was. Not a person, not an animal, too large. The shoulder looked bent. The skin didn't look alive. It vanished out of view. Then came a soft tap on the glass. Twice. Then nothing. The patrol car didn't arrive until after 9. I saw the headlights and ran outside. 2 deputies, one young, one old. I told them everything. They didn't say much, just nodded and said they'd check the hatch. I stayed on the porch. They were gone 15 minutes. Then I heard the older one yell. The younger one came back alone. His face was pale. He said, "We'll call the coroner. You don't need to see." They found her in the hatch, or half of her, from the waist up. They wouldn't tell me anything else. I asked how she died. He looked away and said, "The lock was broken from the inside." The next morning, they sealed the hatch with a backhoe, covered it in concrete, made it level with the ground. I left before they finished. I haven't gone back, but sometimes I still get mail. No stamp, no return address, just a blank envelope. Inside, dirt, nothing else. And one night, a few weeks ago, I went to throw out the trash and found something on top of the bin. It was the arm of an orange sweater, the same knit pattern, the same torn seam near the elbow, laid out flat, like someone wanted me to recognize it.